you better bet I'm gonna get found.
I'm Brooke Bell, editor of Taste of the South magazine, and today I'm outside of Charleston, West Virginia, in the town of Malden, home to Dickinson Salt-Works. The first time I ever tasted this beautiful heirloom salt, I knew I had to learn more. I'm here with Nancy and Lewis, brother and sister owners of Dickinson Salt-Works. So tell me, how did this begin?
Well, it really began with William Dickinson. About 1813, he decides to invest in salt properties in Western Virginia. And so he and Joel Shrewsbury invested in properties. Joel came over, and by the 1830s, they had this farm, and they had drilled their first salt wells. It was actually called J.Q. Dickinson and Company, and they were making salt, but they were also doing a lot of different things. And they were actually the longest producing operator of salt in the state. They started in the 1830s, probably even before then. Most of the operators, and there were several of them, I mean up to 50 in this area, stopped making salt around the Civil War. But then they produced salt all the way up until 1945, and they were the last ones.
So can I go see the salt mine?
Well, Brooke, it's not a salt mine.
So this is it?
That's it.
Wow.
I know, some people think it's a little underwhelming, but actually we're standing on top of a trapped ancient sea.
Now that's impressive. So where does the salt come from?
So our well goes down 350 feet. We have a pump at the bottom that draws the brine up and takes it into our tanks right over here. I'll go show you.
So are these the real tanks?
These are the tanks.
Okay, so tell me, what happens to the brine when it's in these tanks?
So we move it from our well through this hose. We have a pump, and it pumps it in here. So it's 2,500 gallons. We need to let it settle. There's a lot of iron in the brine. The salt used to be called Kanawha red salt, and it was famous for that and from that iron sediment in it. Today our palates are much more developed, and we really don't like metallic flavors in our food. So we let the iron settle here, and then we can capture it and use it for other things.
Okay, and then where does it go next?
It goes into these sun houses around the corner.
Okay. Nancy, tell me about this part of the process.
So we have these big beds in here in these sun houses that we fill with the brine after it's settled in the tank. So it's been in the tank for about a week, and then we use these big hoses and feed it gravitationally in here.
So how much brine does this bed hold?
Each bed holds about 250 gallons.
Okay, and ultimately, how much salt will that make?
We make about 4 ounces of salt per gallon.
Wow. So let's go see that process.
Okay, we'll go this way.
Nancy, look at all of these crystals. Wow. So tell me, how did we get to this process?
So we had the salt, the brine in the other sun houses, our evaporation sun houses, and we move it over here where this is what we call the granary, and this is where we crystallize the salt. And so it comes into these very long, shallow beds where it stays 3 to 5 days before the crystals form.
So tell me, during the warmer months, you are able to harvest a lot more salt than during the cooler months in the wintertime?
Absolutely, absolutely. Warm, sunny days, we can harvest the salt much, much more quickly.
Okay, awesome. And look at these beautiful tools. What do you do with those?
So these are made by Allegheny Treenware, which is a West Virginia woodworking company in Thornton, West Virginia, and we worked with them on the design of the tools. We like to use wood and non-reactive materials with the salt, so there's no corrosive possibility of contamination. So they're modeled on the French salt-making tools, and so we use this to harvest the salt.
Look at that.
So it lets the brine flow back through the rake and then pulls the crystals forward.
Okay. That's like a pound of salt just right there.
It is. So it's a pretty amazing process. And then we use these tools, a scoop and a scraper.
Okay.
Scrape it up. Let that drain back in. You see those beautiful crystals?
Right.
And we put it in.
So what is that lined with?
It's a cotton cloth towel, and it's just what we use to help absorb the extra brine. And then we tie it up and let it drain for a day in here.
Okay. So how much salt does each of these hold?
About 4 to 5 pounds of salt.
Okay.
And then we hang it.
And then we will have salt.
And then it drains and dries. And then we take it inside where we process it. We clean it and package it.
Okay, fantastic. Well, let's go see how that happens.
Yeah, I think Lewis is waiting in there for you.
Okay,
and
perfect.
He'll show you the rest of the process.
Hey, Lewis.
Hey, Brooke.
So now the salt is inside. What happens here?
So after it dries for a day outside, we bring it in these towels that you see. And we change out the towels just to get it even more moisture off of the salt. And then what we do is we stack it on these trays and let it sit for a week. Once they're here for a week, then we roll them up. And what these rolls tell you is that it's ready to be cleaned. And so when we get time, we'll come and we'll clean salt. But we use tweezers. Things tend to get in it, whether it's a little bit of dirt or whatever, and we don't want anything in it. So all we want in the jar is the salt. And once it's cleaned, it's then actually rolled back up again and dried even longer, and then put in a blue bin. So we're gonna sift out the larger crystals, and that's what these machines are.
Okay.
And then once we get it consistent, it goes in these tubs. This means that it's been cleaned, dried, sifted, ground.
And then you package the salt?
Then we package it. Again, everything is done by hand, manually. Nothing's really automated.
So now I have to ask, can I
Please
fill a jar?
Please do.
Okay, so I just set it on the scale.
Just scoop it, yep,
And then
until you get
scoop it
4
in.
ounces.
4 ounces is the magic number. And I think it's time for a label. We're right at 4
Perfect.
ounces.
There you go. I'll let you put that on, and I'll get you a lid. There you go.
My first jar of salt.
Fantastic. Congratulations. Great job, Brooke.
Thanks, Lewis. I had a blast making salts with you and Nancy today.
It was our pleasure.
And I hope all of you enjoy this process as much as I did. One jar at a time, J.Q. Dickinson is preserving the history of their family as well as the history of this area of West Virginia.